Spike had always been part of the family, or so he thought. But on that fateful day, as the baby choked, Spike's response stunned everyone. Unaware of what lay ahead, Spike felt a strange unease as the family car, usually a source of joy and adventure, ventured further than ever before without any hint of returning. Peering through the window, he saw the children giggling and the parents engaged in light conversation, yet the atmosphere was unusually tense. Suddenly, the car decelerated and halted at the roadside in a deserted area. The back door swung open and Spike, full of excitement for what he thought would be another adventure, leapt out, his tail wagging furiously. He waited eagerly for a familiar gesture, a command or a gentle pat, but none came. Instead, an unsettling silence filled the air. The engine revved, and suddenly the car sped off. Spike dashed after it, barking loudly, desperate to catch his family's attention. However, the car only accelerated further, his joyful wagging tail now drooping in despair as confusion overtook his gaze. Exhausted, Spike halted at the roadside, his breath heavy, eyes fixed on the disappearing car as it vanished beyond the horizon, carrying away all that he cherished. Before him stretched a vast, empty road under the harsh glare of the summer sun, its heat mirroring the asphalt's unforgiving glare. The only sound was the echo of the fading engine, leaving behind a crushing silence. Spike scanned his surroundings, searching for anything familiar, but found only the swirling hot wind and dust stirring around him. He sniffed at the road, the brittle bushes, and caught a weak scent of the departing car. A wave of sadness and bewilderment crystallized into a stark epiphany. He needed to find his way home. Spike set off in the direction the car had disappeared, following the faint scent trail his family had left behind. Initially, his steps were determined, fueled by the hope of reunion. But as the day wore on and the sun's position changed, reality set in. Spike was alone, navigating an endless road without sustenance or the comfort of his loved ones. Spike eventually sought refuge under the sparse shade of a lone tree, collapsing from exhaustion and a deep sense of betrayal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the road was shrouded in darkness, providing a respite from the day's brutal heat, but ushering in new challenges for the weary dog. The night air buzzed with the sounds of insects and distant calls of unknown creatures, heightening Spike's unease. Despite his fear, the drive to find his way back home propelled him forward. Thirst clawed at him. His mouth felt parched, and weakness seeped into his limbs. Yet the hope of reunion spurred him on. By dawn, Spike's persistence led him to a small stream. The water, cool and refreshing, revived his spirits as he drank deeply, momentarily easing his fatigue. But hunger loomed large. He scoured the area around the stream, chasing after small rodents that darted out of reach, leaving him frustrated and famished. Days turned into a blur as Spike pressed on, driven by a single-minded intent to return home. The journey was relentless. Scorching days, chilly nights, and the ever-present danger of wildlife. One harrowing encounter with a pack of coyotes tested his resolve. They circled him, their teeth bared and growls threatening. With a burst of courage, Spike managed to fend them off, but the skirmish left him more vulnerable and on edge than before. Despite the overwhelming challenges, Spike's spirit remained unbroken. He scavenged for water wherever he could find it and subsisted on the small animals he managed to catch. Exhaustion bore down on him both physically and emotionally, yet the vivid memories of his family fueled his resolve to press on. Finding an old, abandoned cabin by the roadside, Spike entered with caution, his nose twitching as he explored the unfamiliar environment. Settling into a corner, he found a momentary sanctuary, and as he drifted off to sleep, visions of home danced in his mind, recollections of familiar scents and the warmth of his family's affection. These dreams rekindled his determination to keep moving. With the break of dawn, Spike felt a renewed sense of hope. The cool morning air was a soothing balm after the extremes of temperature he had faced. Although the cabin had provided some shelter, it couldn't satisfy his deep yearning to return to where he belonged. Quenching his thirst with water from a small puddle left by overnight rain, he set out once again. As Spike trod along the familiar road, signs of home began to emerge. Trees that seemed known to him, the unique scent of the soil, the landscape that resonated with a sense of belonging. All these signs invigorated his spirit. Each step forward brought with it a surge of hope, suggesting that perhaps, just perhaps, he was much closer to home than he had dared to imagine. Yet, Spike's newfound hope faced a swift challenge as the weather shifted dramatically. What had been a clear, sunlit sky was suddenly overshadowed by menacing clouds. The distant rumbling of thunder heralded an approaching storm. Spike hastened his pace, seeking shelter from the impending deluge, but he was too late. The storm unleashed its fury. Thunder resounded over the desolate road and relentless rain drenched his coat, each drop adding weight, making his movements sluggish and draining. The howling winds buffeted him from side to side, complicating his efforts to advance. Desperate for cover, Spike scanned the horizon, but the road offered no sanctuary, stretching endlessly before him. A wave of despair threatened to overwhelm him, yet his resolve did not waver. With each terrifying clash of thunder and each flash of lightning that illuminated the sky, Spike was reminded of his home and the loved ones waiting for him. These bursts of light rekindled his courage, fueling his determination to overcome the adversities. Just as exhaustion seemed about to take hold, Spike's eyes caught a glimpse of a potential refuge, a small, old wooden bridge spanning a river in the distance. He rushed to the bridge and took shelter underneath, finding a moment's escape from the relentless storm. Drenched and weary, he collapsed onto the muddy ground, the sound of rain hammering the wooden bridge above him. Spike knew his journey was nowhere near its end, yet he could afford a brief respite. The constant patter of raindrops on the bridge coaxed him into a deep slumber, where dreams carried him back to his home. Vividly, he saw the front door, inhaled the scent of freshly mown grass, and heard the joyful laughter of children darting around him. The comfort and security of these memories enveloped him, momentarily erasing the bitter solitude of his journey. In the days that ensued, memories of his time with the family guided him. As Spike journeyed, he cherished recollections of lazy mornings sprawled on the couch, strolls through the park, and chilly evenings curled at his owner's feet. These memories provided not only solace but also the direction needed to navigate his way back home. Each new landscape he traversed sparked a memory anew. A field of wildflowers brought back the time the children gathered blooms to adorn the kitchen table. Climbing a gentle hill, he recalled racing alongside them in playful chases. These treasured memories propelled him onward, bolstering his hope that home was drawing near. However, the relentless travel was exacting its toll. His body weakened, growing increasingly gaunt as days passed. Scrounging barely enough food to sustain himself, signs of his fatigue grew unmistakable. Despite this, Spike's resolve remained unshaken. His home awaited, and he could not, would not, halt his quest now. At last, Spike crested a hill and beheld the familiar outline of his old neighborhood shimmering in the distance. His heart surged with fresh resolve, and he started down the hill, invigorated more than he had been in days. He felt an overwhelming closeness to his family, knowing reunion was within reach, which spurred him on through the weariness and remaining obstacles. His heart pounding with anticipation as he descended, the recognizable sense of the neighborhood overwhelmed him with emotions almost too intense to handle. Each step drew him nearer to the end of his long quest, his house, his home. Upon reaching the hill's base, the sight of the white fence encircling his old home's yard washed over him with relief and a tinge of apprehension. He was home at last, awaiting the embrace of his family. Yet, as Spike neared the house, an uneasy feeling took hold. The grass was overgrown, the yard unkempt, an unfamiliar neglect that seemed out of place. Despite this, his hope propelled him forward. He paused in the yard, taking in the sight of the familiar house. Everything appeared almost unchanged. The curtains were closed and a profound silence hung in the air. Spike hesitated, searching for signs of life, yearning to see the children playing in the yard, but it remained deserted. With a sinking heart, Spike made his way to the back door where warm welcomes had always awaited him. Yet, as he approached, a stark difference struck him. The house emitted no sounds of life, no hints of his family's presence. The barren yard and oppressive silence intensified his solitude. He settled down near the door, clinging to the fading hope that someone would emerge to greet him. Time ticked by slowly, and the quietude of the house deepened. Spike's hope dwindled with each silent moment. As hours passed, doubt crept in. Perhaps his family had indeed moved on without him. Grief began to engulf him, but just as despair threatened to take over, a subtle noise inside the house stirred his attention. It was soft, like something dropping. His ears perked up as the sound echoed again, clearer now, the unmistakable sound of water. Instinctively sensing trouble, Spike sprang up and dashed to the other side of the house where a low fence led to the pool area. Spike arrived at the pool's edge and was struck by the harrowing scene. The family's baby floundered in the water, desperately trying to stay above the surface. Time seemed to halt as he processed the crisis unfolding before him. The baby was nearly submerged, its tiny arms flailing wildly against the engulfing waters. Without a moment's pause, Spike's instincts surged. He dove into the chilly pool, disregarding his own fatigue and physical limits. The water enveloped him, cold and burdensome, yet his focus remained laser-sharp on the imperiled child. Each stroke through the water was a Herculean task, propelled by sheer willpower. Reaching the struggling baby, Spike gently clamped onto the fabric of the child's clothing with his teeth, ensuring he caused no harm. He turned back toward the pool's edge, the weight of the child making each movement through the water immensely challenging. Spike's muscles screamed in protest, his energy dwindling, yet the unwavering resolve to save the baby spurred him forward, each stroke fueled by determination and love. With a final, determined push, Spike reached the pool's edge. He summoned all his remaining strength to lift the baby out of the water and onto the safety of the pool deck. The child was drenched and wailing, but miraculously unharmed. Spike, breathless and exhausted, dragged himself from the pool and collapsed beside the baby. Shivering from the cold and sheer exertion, he lay there, gently licking the baby's face to soothe its cries. At that moment, the parents appeared, drawn by the sound of their child's cries. They halted in shock at the sight before them. Spike, drenched and struggling for breath, lying next to their baby whom he had just rescued. The initial shock quickly transformed into deep emotion as they grasped the gravity of the situation. They hurriedly gathered the baby into their arms, checking over him with frantic care, soon realizing that without Spike, they might have faced a devastating loss. The father, cradling the baby, knelt down beside Spike, tenderly stroking the dog's wet fur as tears streamed down his cheeks. The mother, equally moved, whispered heartfelt thanks between her sobs, overwhelmed by the courage of the family dog who had saved their child's life. Spike was utterly spent, struggling even to keep his eyes open, but the waves of relief and love emanating from his family enveloped him in warmth. The recognition and affection he had longed for now cradled him gently. Closing his eyes, Spike felt a profound peace, secure in the knowledge that he was, at last, truly home. The parents gently lifted Spike and carried him into the house, while the baby settled quietly in his mother's arms. Once inside, surrounded by familiar sights and sounds, Spike realized that his journey and sacrifice had been worthwhile. He had not only saved a life, but had also reclaimed his cherished place within the loving embrace of his family. The silence in the house was broken only by the gentle rhythm of deep breaths. Cradled in his mother's embrace, the baby slept serenely. Nearby, Spike lay on the sofa, cocooned in a cozy towel. The father walked back and forth across the room, trying to grasp the day's events, occasionally pausing to gently pat Spike, reassuring himself of the dog's presence. Emotions surged during their reunion. The parents' faces were marked with guilt and sorrow. They recognized their grave error in leaving Spike behind. His brave deed now magnified their regret, making the burden of their past decision all the more painful. The father settled next to Spike and whispered regretfully, "I'm so sorry, Spike. We never should have done this to you." His voice carried the weight of his regret and sorrow. Despite his fatigue, Spike raised his head and met his owner's gaze. His eyes, filled with forgiveness and love, conveyed his absolution. He harbored no resentment, only a longing to be reunited with his family. Tears flowed down the mother's cheeks as she sat by her husband, still cradling the baby. "You saved our child, Spike. We can never thank you enough for that." They spent the night caring for Spike, feeding him, drying his fur, and tucking him into blankets. Each tender act strengthened their bond, mending the ties that had once frayed. Spike received their love gratefully, knowing he had truly reclaimed his place in their hearts. As the family encircled Spike, with the baby now nestled peacefully in his crib, the father dimmed the lights and everyone retired for the night. They all knew that this day, a blend of fear and relief, would be eternally cherished as the day Spike returned home. In the days that followed, a new routine took shape, centered entirely around Spike. The family vowed never to overlook the devotion and loyalty he had demonstrated. Each morning started with the father taking Spike for a walk in the neighborhood, a ritual abandoned since their painful separation. Spike trotted happily alongside, his tail wagging continuously, thrilled to be with his owner once more. The home, previously subdued and quiet, buzzed with activity. The children, who had once been preoccupied with their own interests, now devoted more time to playing with Spike, engaging in games of fetch in the yard, and frolicking with him throughout the house. The mother, often tied up with household duties, now made sure to pause and stroke Spike each time she walked by him. It seemed as though each family member was actively expressing to Spike just how integral he was to their lives. With each day, the connection between Spike and the baby deepened. The baby, too young to grasp the past events, naturally grew fond of Spike, always beaming with a smile in his presence. Spike, for his part, took on the role of the baby's protector, keeping a vigilant watch over the little one. Their bond flourished, profound and sincere, highlighting Spike's renewed purpose in safeguarding that precious young life. As time passed, the parents' feelings of guilt diminished, overtaken by deep gratitude. They recognized their immense debt to Spike and were committed to reciprocating the love and loyalty he had displayed. The family began to cherish their time together more, including Spike in every activity to solidify his role in their home. One evening, they gathered in the garden to watch the sunset. Spike lay next to the baby, who lounged on a blanket on the grass. The mother observed this peaceful scene with a smile, embracing a tranquility she hadn't felt for a while. The father joined her, draping an arm around her shoulders, and together they admired Spike with fondness and admiration. "He's part of our family forever," he whispered, and the mother nodded in agreement. Spike raised his head, looking at them as if he comprehended their words. His eyes reflected contentment and happiness. He was truly home, and he knew it was for good. Spike's tale imparts several profound lessons: unconditional love and steadfast loyalty. He demonstrated that genuine affection and commitment aren't contingent on how we are treated or the situations we encounter. Despite being left behind, he remained loyal to his family, even risking his life to protect them. Forgiveness and redemption. Spike's family learned the crucial lessons of forgiveness and redemption after their serious mistake of abandoning him. Spike forgave them effortlessly, and this act of forgiveness facilitated healing and the restoration of their family bond. Valuing what truly matters. The story underscores the importance of valuing those who love and stay faithful to us. Spike's family learned this lesson the hard way, but eventually came to understand the true worth of their dog and his significant role in their lives. Resilience. Spike's journey back home symbolizes resilience. He faced numerous obstacles but never abandoned his mission. His resolve teaches us the value of perseverance, even against overwhelming odds. Care and responsibility. Spike's story also reminds us that caring for a pet is a significant responsibility. Animals, much like any family member, deserve love, respect, and attentive care. And if you, like me, are captivated by animals and their remarkable stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.